The fishing news is brought to you by Interlux Marine Paint, Maxima Fishing Line, and Okuma.
Hey there, Toby Lapinski for the New England edition of the Fisherman magazine with this week's web video fishing forecast for New England. I want to start off this week by letting you know that the 15th annual Tri-State Canyon Shootout kicks off this coming Sunday, July 31st, and brings together one of the largest sport fishing fleets in the Northeast with some of the biggest names in the fishing industry to compete for the top spot. You can check out all the details of this awesome tournament at thefisherman.com, and there's still time to sign up. All right, moving on into the reports. Well, I was always going to kick it off in Connecticut. It sounds like bluefish have finally begun to spread out inside Long Island Sound. I saw my first school of snapper bluefish last week, right after I filmed the report video, and blues have been reported in force at places like the Reef, the lower Connecticut River, the Thames River, Plum and 6 Mile Reef. The party boats are now mostly all sailing daily for bass and blues to combine with bottom fishing trips, so check out the reports for details on who is sailing and exactly when so you can get in on this awesome bite. And as I reported to you last week, Captain Bruce of the Otter found a nice pick of striped bass. They pretty much stuck around well into this week with fish to 54 inches landed since I last checked in. He says that still his otter tubes and otter tails continue to produce the fish for him with lots of 40 to 48 inch bass boated, and the vast majority of his anglers have been releasing their fish, so that's awesome. Congrats on the good catches, and we commend you for releasing all those big fish. And we're going to move on into Rhode Island, where Dave Hino of Ocean State Tackle is back on board as an advertiser with the Fisherman, and he reports some excellent fluking going right now, both inside the bay as well as out in Block Island Sound. And he sent us a picture of a massive 34-inch, 14-pound fluke landed by one of his customers, Brandon Hakopian, recently. And I also got word from the guys about the Francis fleet and the 7Bs in Point Judith, and they've noticed some really steady action on fluke, sea bass, and scup on their daily trips lately. And then striped bass fishing out around Block is pretty good right now, with some numbers of large fish finally starting to show up around the island. Captain Tony of Booked Off Charters reports a few trips recently with multiple 40-plus pound striped bass landed, and they even had one solid 50-plus that was lost right at the boat side. That's a heartbreaker, but still getting in some really good fish over there. And moving up into Massachusetts, I want to start off the Mass Report by passing along word of yet another illegal fishing bust by the Massachusetts Environmental Police. This time, after receiving multiple complaints of striper poaching, the MEPs hit up the fleet of boats working in southern Cape Cod Bay on July 24th. They conducted 60 vessel inspections and found 6 commercial vessels out of compliance. Now you can check out the full story and complete details of what they found at thefisherman.com. And then on a positive note, blue fishing out at the vineyard has been pretty good lately, both by boat and from shore, with a lot of really good bluefish being landed from shore at Chappie. And to keep the good news going, word is that the plovers have finally begun to fledge around the island, and more of Chappaquiddick is opening up to beach driving access each day. All right, well, there you have it. I'm Toby Lapinski for the New England edition of the Fisherman magazine, wishing you tight lines if you head out onto the water this weekend.
The fishing news is brought to you by Interlux Marine Paint, Maxima Fishing Line, and Okuma.